I'm Dr. Melissa Longo. Welcome to Everyday Rockstar Moms, where every episode I'll interview moms just like you who are rocking it in their homes, raising their children, managing their households, building their careers, working on their relationships, dealing with challenges, finding success, trying to find balance, and themselves along the way. Every episode you'll hear from women just like you of all ages and stages of motherhood, sharing their stories, life experiences, and leaving you with practical tips, ideas, and inspiration to help you rock your life. Hey Andrea, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Melissa. It's good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you on today. Obviously, we're friends. I know you personally. I know how hard you work in your family life and your business life, taking on new challenges, managing it all. It's seemingly effortlessly. I'm sure it's not always that way.
Not even close.
Yeah. So one thing that I've always loved about you is you're not afraid to tell it like it is.
No.
So why don't you tell our listeners to start off, just, a little bit about yourself, where you're at with your life, with your kids, with your work, with your partner, and we'll go from there.
Sure. So I'm a chiropractor in Barrie. I work with my husband. The two of us own a practice that's very family focused, family centered, very much family run. You see our kids in it on a regular basis. We have 3 children. Kaylee is 9, Blake just turned 7, and Maggie is our youngest. She's 3, and we just added a dog into the mix. So it's it's busy. It's amazing. I love it all, and I wouldn't give up any of it, to be honest with you. So yeah,
that's fantastic. Now, have you? So your oldest daughter is 9, so which means you've been in practice longer than you've had children, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So you had some time with your business and your career before you became a mom.
Yeah, Tom and I practiced in this. So Tom, my husband, is American, and once Kaylee was, before she was born, but when we moved up here after she was born, but I managed to convince him to move up to Canada after we got pregnant, actually, with her. So we lived in the States and practiced down there for 5 years, kind of nomadically. We practiced in upstate New York, in Connecticut, and then Tom actually settled in the Bronx. And I did some locum work out of the city for, I guess, about a year, and then I became pregnant. So, I think that was our time frame on that.
So you picked up and then moved to Canada, back to Canada, and had a baby and started a practice all at the same time?
Yeah, Kaylee was 3 months old when we moved home. So when we moved to Barrie, I should say. So, and we moved January 29th of 07, and I started practice February 1st. And I think Tom started like 3 days after me. So we were right into it as soon as we moved up here. But being self-employed, that's kind of how it is. We don't choose, I should say, maternity leave for that full year. So we're kind of right back at it pretty quickly.
So you must remember that time vividly.
Mm-hmm.
What were some of the key challenges that you and Tom faced trying to navigate the world of a new business as well as a new baby?
The new baby was definitely the hardest thing. Kaylee didn't sleep until she was 2. So, and by that I mean through the night. So I think sleep deprivation was massive. I think for Tom, most of it was that when we moved up to Canada, we moved up here like January 29th, and within the first 12 hours, I think we went from no snow to about 4 feet of snow. So for him, he had never seen anything like this.
Yeah.
He was like, "Where did you take me?" And it was one of the worst snow. All I remember thinking is the snow is never going to stop, and my husband is going to move back home and leave me up here by April, because we just got snow, like hit after hit after hit with it. So. And working the business, he and I at that point were working the same hours. We were associates in a practice, so we didn't have the responsibility of owning a practice yet until, '09, I think. Yes, 2009, which is when we purchased the practice. So we had a few years, 2 or 3 years to sort of work our way into that practice.
Mm-hmm. And what's it like for you guys now? I mean, working together as partners and personal partners in life as well. That poses some unique challenges on your relationship and also adds to your relationship and gives you some unique joy together, I'm sure, too.
It does. It's sort of a love-hate business relationship with my husband. I love the fact that we get to do what we do. We're very proud of the practice we run. Tom and I work opposite schedules. So if he's in the practice, I'm out with the kids. Very similar actually to Sabrina Berkovich, who you had on a little while ago. I was listening to that interview.
Mm-hmm.
And we scheduled our lives very similarly in that we felt that it was good so that if someone could be home to take the kids to school while the other person was working and vice versa. And it works for the most part. I think, there are challenges. I We're both very strong-minded personalities, I think is the nice way to put it. So we both like to fight for
Mm-hmm.
what we want in the practice. And we don't always necessarily agree, although we do hear each other out. But I think at the same time, we do the same thing in and out every day. So even though we're working opposite schedules, when we come home at night, we sometimes struggle just to come up with something new, because he understands what chiropractic practice is like, and I
Mm-hmm.
understand what it's like to take care of the kids. We have these little slight differences, but it's, when we're, at the end of the day, it's, we sort of have the same life maybe, but just from a different perspective, I guess. So it's sort of, I think that's a bit of a challenge, is that there wasn't much, or there hasn't been much in the past in terms of something new to add to each other. I
Something
sometimes envy
adventurous.
Yeah, I envy people who have totally separate lives outside of the house, because I'm like, oh, that would be so exciting to hear, what this lifestyle is like, or what this life is like, or what their work life is like. And I kind of know what Tom's life is like. So,
Do you guys have specific values or goals that help you consistently look at your work-life balance and define those two different relationships that you have with each other? Do you shift into wife mode and then sometimes you're, Andrea Ryan doctor mode together with Tom, or how do you guys work that out?
yeah, for the most part, we kind of, at the house, I would say we have very specific roles. I tend to do things like the shopping for food and for whatever, the kids' clothes, home supplies, that sort of thing. He takes the more traditional male roles, let's say, of, fixing the cars and doing the grass and snow removal. Like it sounds very gender specific, and it's almost like catching in my throat as I say it, but we're both very comfortable with that, and we both love that part of it. Like I have zero interest in figuring out what's wrong with my car, or you know mowing the lawn, and he doesn't really want to make meals every night, or prepare for those meals or do the shopping. So it's kind of nice for us to have those roles, and I think it works really well. From a value standpoint, sure. I mean, we've had very similar values in terms of how we wanted to raise our kids, everything from their healthcare to their activities to their, putting not them necessarily first, because we always put ourselves first, the two of us. I mean, it's, as a couple, we want to make sure that our relationship is healthy, even more so, which may sound strange, than the relationship we have with our kids, only because if we're not strong and healthy, then our kids can't be strong and healthy. So but it does overflow into the fact that we are supportive of one another's styles of, making sure the kids are taken care of. If they need to be spoken to about certain something, we've got each other's backs. We don't go behind each other on those certain things, but we're also looking out for each other on the same path.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And I find the same thing that I'm reminding moms, in my practice, is that you've got to take care of yourself first. And it's not a selfless thing. It's a self-full thing. It's a self-loving thing to take care of yourself at times, because then you can give more to your kids. You can give more to your partner, to your work, if you're making sure that your basic needs are met.
Oh, totally. And it's also good, absolutely. I mean, we both make time for the gym. We both make time to have our quiet time. We both make time for the loves outside of our everyday lives. Like my husband loves to play softball. He loves to play football in the fall. He plays racquetball. So he does those, and there's no guilt there. I mean, I want him to go and have that time, just as he understands I need my time at the gym. I need my quiet hour in the morning when I first wake up. And we're supportive of that. And we want not only for each of ourselves to be supportive of it, but it also shows that to our kids that, you got to take care of yourselves. And, we have our date night every second Wednesday, and we don't miss it unless there's something catastrophic. Or if, there's a major thing going on in our kids' lives that just, it's a one-time thing, like a gymnastics competition, then we'll be there for that. But, we want our kids to see that we care for ourselves just as much as we care for each other. And it sets the example for them to see how you treat other people and what a relationship should and can look like. Even when there are hard times, you got to celebrate the good times too.
Absolutely. I mean, you took the words out of my mouth. I was going to ask you how you made time to put your relationship first. What kind of, tactical specifics would you recommend to other people? And date nights is a common thing. Are there any other little ways that you two find time to connect and stay engaged in your relationship?
Yeah, well, anytime that we have, I guess it's kind of like a date night, but if we have the ability to grab lunch together, we do. Um, Even things like going for a walk together, just, I don't care if it's around the neighborhood for 10 minutes and grabbing, a local neighborhood kid who's the age to be able to take care of Maggie, or even just the simplest things of sitting out on our porch. If our kids are gone to bed at night, now that it's warmer, of course, we can sit out on the porch, or if it means in the living room and having a movie night. It doesn't have to be big and fantastic and over the top. It can be the smallest of times, or holding hands in the car, so that, that you're just there, and it's that physical touch or that physical connection. I think that's so important.
Yeah, and as you said, your goal is to set examples for your kids, and them seeing the two of you, holding hands, showing, affection to each other, and saying, we're going to go for a walk now. Mommy and Daddy want some time together. That's setting an example of the kind of relationship strategies that they will want to adopt in their relationships ultimately.
Absolutely. I hope.
Yeah, you hope. So, you've got you guys work together. You've got 3 children. You just talked about all the personal ideas and passions that you have from sports and gym time. What is your schedule like? Typically, do you guys have a really routine day-to-day schedule, or are things kind of more loose? Like, what does that look like for you to manage all those different parts of your life together? Does it just flow? Because for me, I'm not a schedule kind of person. Like, I like freedom. I like adventure. I like things changing all the time. And we've got a chalkboard in the calendar. This is what's happening for everyone this week. And I just, things just fit in every week. Every week, everything that needs to get done gets done, but it's not on, on the dot, on the clock, scheduled perfectly.
Yeah, you know what? I'm probably maybe a little bit more scheduled than that. It's hard,
I think most people are.
Yeah, it's a great question, only because there are certain things that you just can't not schedule, right? Like Kaylee has gymnastics at specific times on specific days. So that part of it, I would say yes. A lot of the evenings, not a lot of the evenings, I would say at least 2 evenings in a week, I'm out. So those are doing other things other than, because I work with essential oils. So I teach a lot of classes. So those can be more fluid sometimes. If there's an opportunity to meet with someone, then that can be a more fluid thing. And sometimes it's just Tom honors me in the understanding that, if that pops up, I'm going to take that opportunity to go and do it. And if there's an event, or sometimes it's let's go to the park right now because the weather is awesome and we're going to run to the park. So I think it's sort of more of a balance. I'm probably a little bit more scheduled compared to what you're describing, but at the same time, I do like that, just grabbing onto something because it's there and saying, okay, let's go do this and let's have fun with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, don't get me wrong. There's definitely some order to our lives, but I just ask because a lot of moms, look at women that are doing a lot of different things, and you're balancing the different parts of you. It sounds like to me, right? You're making time for quiet in the morning to soothe your soul. You're making time to be a great partner and to get the relationship that you want with Tom. You're making your kids a party. You're doing work that you love. So how, to other people who are listening to this, how does that all work together? Because so many moms, and I know you see a lot of moms and kids in your practice too, feel like some days you just can't keep up, right? And so just trying to give some tips to families who are in that space.
Okay, so then yes. Okay, so then I guess I'd probably say I definitely do schedule things. I mean, for example, this morning when I get up, I go to the gym, I come back, get the kids breakfast and so on. And then it's just a matter of knowing if I've got 6 things on the docket between now and speaking with you around 1:00, how am I going to fit those things in? So yeah, I would say planning definitely does help. If I didn't plan as well, one of my biggest drawbacks is that I'm a procrastinator. So if it's something I don't want to do, it will happily sit on my to-do list until whenever. So I think part of it is just jumping in and saying, all right, it's got to get done, put a time frame on it, and because otherwise it will sit there happily.
Yeah. No doubt. I think that's something that many of us can relate to. Let's talk a little bit about, you talked about the gym. What other lifestyle factors are crucial for you to help you feel like you're performing at your peak?
So gym is good. This is actually a newer addition. I used to be a big CrossFitter and then I injured myself about a year ago. So I just joined a second gym after realizing for a year that I really hadn't done a lot physically. Walking just wasn't enough for me. So I just joined a gym again. So it's nice to have that physical aspect back into it. But we touched upon it as well, is that I really need that morning routine. I relish getting up in the morning and having a quiet household. So it means a 5 a.m. wake up call for me and having that 1 hour where there's no one else awake in the home. I can read, I can journal, I can stretch, I can meditate, I can listen to a podcast, I can go online if need be and check out my other business. I can, whatever, it's just that 1 hour of me time is so so crucial. I don't know what I would do. I think I would literally be a loony bin if I wasn't like I can't even imagine how I would keep everything going. I'd be living in a zoo otherwise. So it's that time that's really important.
It really grounds you.
Totally.
Have you always been a morning person?
Yeah, I think so. I was not a professional. I was a competitive swimmer growing up. So, and I remember even as a kid, my dad would say, if you're not up by 7 a.m., you've missed half the day. And so it's always been ingrained in me to get up early. And swimming competitively had you up at, God, I think we were in the pool at 5:30 in the mornings. So, you're up at 4:30 to get a little bit of food in you and then a half hour to get to the gym or to the pool at that point. So it's always been morning, morning, morning. And so for me, and well, as you remember, we've done a couple of seminars together, and I'm always the first to sleep. So and I used to fall asleep at sleepovers. I was the lead.
Okay, and I think one of those times you were pregnant with Maggie.
I was,
so,
yeah. And I didn't tell you
afterwards.
So early.
Yeah. So yeah, certainly it sounds like the routine of you getting up early as a swimmer, that developed habits in you. We have so many experiences in our lives that I think shape who we are as women, which then in turn affect who we are as mothers. And does anything stand out for you, or do you have any pivotal moments as a mom that have really shaped your how you continue to behave as a mother?
Oh gosh, you know what? I go back, like the hardest part for us was when Kaylee was first born. She was born with a number of health issues. So she was full term and beyond full term. I was technically, and I use the air quotes by saying late, but when she was first born, she came out and wasn't breathing well, and we ended up spending 10 days in the ICU. And what's crazy is that she was so big compared to all of these other children in the NICU because they're so unbelievably tiny because all of them were premature. And what transpired over the next few days until we knew that she was out of the woods, but it was 5 or 6, maybe even 7 days where we really had no idea. There was a lot of touch and go. It was test after test. And it wasn't until months later where my mom, who had flown down because she was born in New Jersey, my mom had flown down and was helping us. And months later, she said, Andrea, what amazed me is how calm you stayed throughout. And she goes, I had no idea what was going on in your head because you didn't let down. You just kept going, and you had this complete trust in the fact that your daughter would be okay and that we weren't going to jump to any rash conclusions or we weren't going to jump to any panic mode until we had the information from whatever doctor had to be working on her or whatever. And I try to keep that in my brain, and it's not always easy, but for me, it's important to just look at the big picture and recognize that sometimes these little bumps in the road are just, the little tiny bumps for the big hills that are coming up, and really just sort of taking it all in and getting as much information as you can from the situation before jumping to conclusions or panicking about something that, it was scary. Don't get me wrong. It was terrifying. And in my head, I did not feel calm or prepared, but it did kind of teach me to sort of just take things in stride and go with the flow with things.
Yeah, which I'm sure you need daily with 3 children.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it reminds me of one of my favorite quotes, and that is that, keep calm and carry on, which has been when I was renovating my property and moving my practice and trying to raise my kids, and there were so many things going on. I literally had it that, it was on a Post-it note or it was on a card or something, and I had it nailed to the wall because we were under construction, just to remind me the importance of just, I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. There might be another crisis. There might be a challenge, but just stay calm and somehow we'll get through this. So I think moments like that can really propel us forward sometimes.
Totally. And drawing it full circle, going back to what you said earlier, I can't tell you how many moms say, like, how is it that you do this? How are you a chiropractor? How do you teach essential oils? How do you be a mom? How do you work with your husband? Like, how do you do all that you do? And then in my brain, I'm like, I don't know, but they further that by saying you seem to always have it so together. And if they could see the inside of my house, sometimes they'd realize I don't necessarily have it all together. And there are plenty of times I am completely overwhelmed and not really sure how I'm going to get through the week, the day, even the next hour. But I look at other moms and think, God, how do they have it all together? Like their spouse works out of town, or one of their kids is really sick, or they're like, or someone's lost a job. Like, I think that we got to look at other moms and realize we're all got our own inner struggles, and it's just a matter. I saw the funny quote the other day saying, if anyone could see the hot mess I am on the inside, they wouldn't be worried about how I can get things all together.
Oh, I agree 100%. I mean, as you know, that's a big reason why I wanted to do this podcast, because, you hear the same comments from all the time. And a lot of moms get overwhelmed. And some days are like that. Some months are like that. But we get strength from seeing other people that have gone through it and seeing how they came out of it. And just day by day, using all those experiences to keep ourselves moving forward.
Totally.
So those times when you feel really overwhelmed and really stressed, what gets you back on track, or what brings that energy down? And do you have a quote or something that really you always turn to when you're feeling stressed or overwhelmed?
I can't say I have I have a number of quotes or readings that I might go to, but there isn't one, honestly, that jumps out right off the top of my head. I mean, just as you kind of said, you keep on keeping on. It's more about the physical practices for me. Taking a few deep breaths. If I have 5 minutes to be quiet, then I'll be quiet. There's one of my favorite oils I'll take into my hands and take a deep breath in, and it just helps me center myself and bring me back to where I feel sane, or where I feel more, not sane. That's probably
some days it's about feeling sane.
It sounds very dramatic when I said that. It came out dramatic, but just getting to a point where I can feel more in control of the situation, and whatever that is. And if it's, we call it, or we joke around, my girlfriends and I call it the 15-second parenting vacation, where, your kids are going insane and you close the door to the car and you walk slowly around the car and take a couple of deep breaths and then open up the car door, and whatever it takes, 10, 15 seconds to get there. And it's just that, it's that reset button for me. And so I think in times of that, I don't come up with a quote. It's just simply deep breath, breathe in something that makes me happy, makes me feel sane, and then pick it up and keep going, right? You can't quit.
It's amazing though, how something so, seemingly simple as 15 seconds or 10 seconds of, just breathing and grounding your thoughts and getting a little teeny bit of perspective can then change the whole outcome of whatever's going on.
Totally.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. Sometimes you just need that, because that might be all that you get today. I might only get 15 seconds of me. If it's in the middle of an afternoon where we're going from one appointment to the next, to dropping off, to getting to school, or picking up from school, if it's 15 seconds, I will happily take those 15 seconds and just take a deep breath.
Mm-hmm. What do you think is your biggest challenge as a mom these days?
Probably balance.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say so. Professionally, I have a lot on my plate, and I feel like I feel the responsibility to a lot of people. First and foremost, though, it doesn't matter what's going on in my professional life, my kids will always come first. And if I don't feel I'm putting them first, then I feel stressed about that. And they're the little things. It's sort of, if I realize that I can't be there to read a book to Maggie at bedtime, that makes me feel that's sort of the first nod. I get it if I can't be there every single night because Tom will get it if I'm not there. But if it's gone 3 nights and I haven't been the one to read her bedtime book, then or bedtime story, that tells me I'm off my purpose.
Mm-hmm.
If I suddenly realize, oh God, last week there were I missed two of those school permission forms. I'm like, how did I miss two school permission forms? And those
They
are
just
the
went in that pile on the counter.
I know, and I usually pride myself on being able to get that stuff organized and get that stuff done. And those are the little red flags in my brain that come up that say, okay, I'm doing too much. We need to find some balance here.
Mm-hmm. So we're with things right now with your business with essential oils and with the practice. Have you had times when you've had to put one of those aside? I know how much you love that side of your life,
Mm-hmm.
but putting your kids first, have you had times when you've had to say, no, I'm not going to pursue this professionally right now?
Yeah, absolutely. The month of March was crazy for me in a great way professionally. I mean, it was absolutely insane. And I loved it. I loved every second of it. My practice was busy. I was teaching a lot of classes. Everything was like so unbelievably great. But I came off March and literally kind of crashed because it was just so much work. I had put so much time and effort into it. And I made the conscious decision there that it was a sit down with Tom and he's like, listen, I'm 100% supportive of you to do this. It's not even a question because the difference with the essential oils is that there isn't a set schedule per se. If there's a class that comes up, then I teach the class. If there's a one-on-one that comes up, I teach that one-on-one. And it's not like I have set specific hours or I had treated it as such. It was just if the opportunity was there, I took it. And I still do, but I now do it on my terms. So I only allow myself out 2 nights a week with stuff after hours. So if it's like a 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock class, just 2 nights a week, I'm trying to keep everything to my daytime hours. I shut my computer down at 9 o'clock at night. I don't allow myself on the computer anymore. So those are those little steps that I had to say because it was taking away from my family and none of whatever that business provides for me, it's not worth it if it means that I wasn't connected with my family to get myself there anyway. So I've got very clear parameters now by which I live that part of my life, the professional side, and it's getting better. And I may not be advancing as quickly the way I had intended to, but that's okay right now because my 3-year-old's only 3 for so long. In 6 months she's going to be 4, and she's going to kindergarten in September, and I get another few short months with her at home, and I'm going to enjoy those. So I'm totally okay with that.
Yeah, I find myself reminding myself the same thing, but I will definitely say to you, and I say this to other moms too, when your kids are younger, yeah, those are the most, demanding years in some ways, but time demanding years, as your kids get older. Like my son is 14, my oldest, and he's got a whole little life of his own now, right? And there's times when he would be with me, generally, but now he's got stuff to do with his friends. So I'm saying this because I remind myself that things that I want to do with my career or in helping other people or in growing myself, there'll be time for that later as well. And life is long. We don't have to do everything, and I'm someone who I like to do things, get this done, let's keep moving forward. But I'm constantly checking myself and reminding myself at the very same thing, at what cost to my sons. If I were to pursue this, how will that compromise my availability to be there as a mom for them? And it's hard to see that sometimes when you're in the minute or when you get really excited about some new opportunity, but I'm with you. Those kids are not part of our day-to-day life for 50 years, right? It's like 20. So savor them while you've got them.
Totally. And how do I say it? It's absolutely, I'm not the type, I definitely want to. And I realize that because there are certain times I look back, I'm like, do I really remember? I seem to remember Kaylee growing up like really, really well. She was the only one. And that's, I guess, the benefit of being the firstborn. And I remember, but it seems like you lose more and more as you have the more kids. And I think, is it just me or is it the fact that we were busier? And clearly we were busier because we owned a practice at that point, and just simply having multiple children makes things different. But yeah, like I want that balance. I definitely want to be able to, for me, it's important to have some professional outlet. It's just been a personal drive of mine forever. but it won't come at the cost of my kids. And it won't, and that's me. And I'm not saying that's right for everyone else. I'm just saying that I've been able to create those boundaries that work really well. And I don't have guilt around saying no. I used to be the worst person for that. I would, people would say, can you do this? Can you do this? Absolutely. I was on 2 different boards. I was volunteering. I was doing all of this work. And because I couldn't say no to people. And now I have no issue with saying no. If it doesn't resonate with my highest priorities and my highest values, I just don't do it, because I'm not going to give it good time and energy anyways. So why would I take that away from someone who could really do a much better job as well?
Wow, that's powerful. It's a big shift.
Thank you.
Have you ever had times when you've made a decision for your family life and it's been met with criticism?
From my family or
from anyone? I mean, so many moms, they're trying to decide where the kids should go to school and what sports they should do and whether they're going to co-sleep or they're going to sleep in a crib, or if they're going to vaccinate or not vaccinate, how they're going to, like, there's so many things, right, that moms are doing. Most moms are just doing the best job they can, and yet they get met with unwanted advice or criticism from others. And if you've had any experiences like that, how have you dealt with them?
Okay, well, yeah, I'd be surprised if I get through a month without hearing criticism from someone. And like when you and at first I was like, well, no, that doesn't happen. And then you touched on a few things. I'm like, oh no, I definitely get criticism there, and there.
Maybe not harsh criticism, but some kind of, sometimes it's a passive aggressive comment that someone makes, or you just know that their tone, their body language, or something that they've said, they don't approve of what you're doing.
Totally. I get that all the time. And in the beginning, it used to bother me. I think the more experience I have as a mom, it doesn't bother me as much anymore. I used to sort of take insult with it and fly off it. Oh my goodness, my Tom would be like, all right, take a deep breath and just let's bring it back in. Everything from, I remember when Blake was first born, we were out at a kids' day and like a play date, and one of the moms was like, oh, so how are you doing? Are you enjoying your mat leave? And I was like, well, it's almost up for me, because I think I went back at 7 weeks with Blake. And they were like, I just don't understand how you could do that. Like, you're taking away time. And she just went on for about 2 minutes. And I was like at first I was so taken aback by it. And it's my choice. And she had no idea how many hours I was working and that he was coming to work with me and all of those sort of things. But that's one that sticks out at me. We do choose not to vaccinate, so we get a lot of comments on that, especially from family members who do choose the opposite. And, everything from breastfeeding. Maggie breastfed until she was 2 years, 4 months. And yeah, the comments on those, like, it is interesting to see. So does it bother me anymore? I think I still hear it, and it's not like I completely ignore it. I think it would be really difficult to completely ignore it. But I know that it works well for my family. So that's the one thing I go back to every time. If it works well for us, then it doesn't matter. If I'm asking advice of someone, I'm happy to listen in. But if I'm not looking for advice on it, then, I don't think the unwarranted advice can sometimes bug me. Or the advice that was not asked for, where someone, and I realize that a lot of people think, oh, well, they're just, they're just being kind, and they're just trying to give some advice. But sometimes it can, if it works well for them, it's great. And it's sort of a fine balance, I suppose. And I guess what I do take from it is I'm mindful of when I open my mouth. If someone asks me what they think, then I'm happy to give them what worked well for us. But it has to, I think it has to be taken with a grain of salt, recognizing that it doesn't work necessarily well for everyone else. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what I hear from that is that you're clear on what your values are personally and also for your family. And as long as you're acting in accordance with those values, you sleep well at night, and you're able to, deal with any kind of criticism in a stronger way, because you're sure of the decision that you're making for yourself. And really, I think that's all that matters.
Yeah. Yeah. Unsolicited advice can sometimes be a challenge. And as I mentioned, if it doesn't fit with our values, I do the head nod otherwise. And then I just sort of dump it afterwards if it doesn't fit well with what works well for our family. So.
We're almost finished up here, Andrea, but I wanted to just ask, if you were to look back Anything that you wish you had done differently? I mean, would there be any advice you would give to moms who have just got young babies, or women who are thinking about having children and trying to have a balanced business life as well?
Oh, it goes back to what we just talked about, is that you got to find what works well for your family, and you're going to learn, you're going to make mistakes, and it's okay. I don't know, I make mistakes every day. Like and every stage comes with a new thing. Like I've never dealt with a 9-year-old before. I have no, there are times I have no idea what's going through that kid's head.
Yeah.
And she doesn't always want to tell me, and that kills me. But at the same time, I honor that and recognize that it's just her process that she has to go through. And just recognizing that we're doing a good job, and it's not just from a fact that our kids are healthy and stuff, because I realize there are a lot of parents out there who are doing an exceptional job and their kids aren't necessarily healthy because of life circumstances. So I don't want to just put it on that, but I look at my kids and they're happy and they're healthy and they're thriving and they're learning their lessons along the way, and we're, teaching them and educating them. And at the same time, they're doing that in reverse for us. I learn more from my kids, I swear, than I have from anyone else on this planet. And I'm just so grateful for this whole journey. And I wouldn't give it up for anything. It's just been an absolute blessing.
Yeah, I was thinking the very same thing just this morning. That how grateful I am to be a mom, because so many, sure, there's days where they're exhausting and you're tired and you feel like you're doing everything. But at the end of the day, my son, left on his grade 8 grad trip, for 4 days in Ottawa with his school friends. And I just felt he was so happy, and I just felt so proud of him. And I wasn't longing like, oh, my baby's going away. I was just excited for him. And I just thought, there's so many people that are not able to have children or really struggle with that, or maybe they're not sure they want to have children. And it's such an amazing experience. All the good stuff, the bad stuff, the good stuff far outweighs the bad stuff.
Totally. Yeah, it's absolutely. You put it perfectly. I just hope that I get to continue on this and see how everything grows, and that I continue to set what I hope is a good example for my kids, and that they just grow into incredible adults who get to give back to their own kids one day, if they choose to have kids, or at very least make a mark on this world that is one they can be proud of, and that, of course, I'm going to be proud of them of.
Well, I have no doubt that you are setting them a great example with everything that you share with us today. Thanks so much for your time. And if people want to find you and learn more about anything that you're doing, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Well, I am in the process of launching my new website, so they can go to drandrearyan.com. So it's just DR and then my name, andrearyan.com.
Great, and it'll all be in the show notes as well. So thank you again, Andrea, and we'll catch up soon.
Thanks, Melissa. Have a great day.
There you have it, a great story today from a mom who rocks. I hope you enjoyed today's show. Be sure to head on over to iTunes and subscribe to the podcast so that you don't miss out on any future episodes. When you do that, I'll be sending you a copy of my top 10 tips for moms. These are some of my personal practical strategies I believe that as women we can all benefit from and help us be emotionally and physically as healthy as we can be. When you're also there on iTunes, I would also love it if you left a review. It's really important to leave some reviews because that helps other people find the podcast, and it helps inspire them to listen and potentially gain some insight from the podcast. Tell other moms that you know would benefit from this show, or most certainly nominate them and let me know who you think I should be interviewing. I'd love for you to connect with us on Facebook as well. Head on over to Everyday Rockstar Mom and join our community there. Thanks so much for joining us today. We'll see you next time.